Good morning, dear students. I hope you all are doing well. Okay, let's start our class. Today we start our class with the climatic factors. Before starting, we need to have an idea. In the last class, we have learned about different environmental factors and its classifications. And during that time, I have told you that simply environmental factors are divided into abiotic and biotic factors. In that classification, we are starting abiotic factors with the first one, that is climatic factors. Under that heading, the first climatic factor we are going to learn is about light. And the basic knowledge, which is the primer source of light. Okay, it's exactly the sun itself. What is the significance of that light that we are receiving from the sun? Because it is very much necessary for photosynthesis, and it regulates the life of all fauna and flora. Without this light, there is no existence for the life. Then next one we need to understand is about electromagnetic spectrum. And all of you have learned about this in your lower classes, especially in physics. Okay. Anyway, I am telling something about electromagnetic spectrum. It is a spectrum of different wavelength. Different types of waves, different types of radiations. They differ with respect to their wavelength. Okay, and this solar radiation is a part. It's not art. It's part. P is missing here. Is a part of this electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, and that comes under the visible light. And from where to where it extends from near to the UV, and almost it extend in the range of infrared. Because infrared, this is its margin. Visible spectrum extend beyond. Yes, a little area it extend beyond the range of infrared. That is the range. Understand? So it extends from near the UV and to beyond the limit of infrared up to red color. Okay, then what is photons? Photons means they are small packets of what? Packets of energy. What type of energy? Electromagnetic radiation. It propagate, it pass in the form of small discrete packets of energy. That packets are called photons. Next. Then visible spectrum. That's about geo. It's basic. That code is very basic. Everybody know from school day. School time onwards. That is visible spectrum. It's always easy to remember by using the code VIBGYOR. Violet, indigo, blue, green, orange, red. Its range is between 300 to 900 nanometer. This is the range. Then UV radiations range. What is it range? UV radiations. If you are telling about UV radiations, it start from what wavelength to what wavelength? That is 10 to 390 nanometer. The lethality of this UV radiation. What is the reason? Because UV, we always telling that is very lethal, it's dangerous. Why? Because it causes so many deleterious effects, harmful effects on nucleic acids. That's why it's we are telling that, or not we, all are telling that your UV rays are lethal. The infrared rays, they are infrared rays are having the longest long wavelength. It's not the longest. Radio waves is the radiation having the longest wavelength. The infrared also to certain extent having a long wavelength. Its range also comes under between 760 to 1 lakh nanometer. It's the longer and hottest radiation. Then solar energy input. Then how much amount of energy is radiating from sun? It is about 5.6 into 10 raised to 27 calorie per minute. Per minute, this much energy is released from sun. And what about how much proportion the earth is receiving of it? Look, 30 percentage reflected by clouds and lost in the space itself. Then come 19 percentage. That 19 percentage absorbed by oxygen, ozone, and the water and ice water. Water means that water crystals and suspended particles present in the atmosphere. All these things absorb this 19 percentage. Then 51 percentage is there, and that 51 percentage is absorbed or sometimes reflected by the its surface. In that sense, we can tell that 70 percentage is available for the functioning of biosphere. Then what factor determine the amount of light's reflection? It depends the nature of the surface on which that light falls. Which type of surface the light is falling. That determines the amount of reflection. Then there is another term, albedo. What is albedo? Albedo is nothing. It is the amount of reflected light. Means there is a surface and certain amount is inciding on the surface, and after incidence certain amount is reflecting back. And what is its amount? Suppose it is x, that value is albedo, the fraction of the incident radiation that is reflected from the surface is called albedo. There's an equation for this albedo, that is reflected radiation by incident radiation into 100. Okay. Next. While considering a rough surface, it have a low albedo. Why is it so? This is the picture of a rough surface, because as it's a rough, its surface is not even. So many ups and downs are there, so the reflection is not fine. That reflection is not up to the perfect. It's not perfect. So there the amount of reflected light is very less. As the amount of reflected rays or light is less, that means its albedo also low. But in the case of smooth surface, what amount the incident light falls on that surface, there is more chance that almost similar amount of energy itself reflected back. So that smooth surface have more albedo. Example, for rough surface, some vegetated landscapes. Vegetated landscapes, we can very clearly imagine that the surface is not even. So many, as it have so many trees, mountains, such different geographical features. It is not even. It's not smooth, rough. So that region have only low albedo. But snow covered surface, it is smooth and even. So there the amount of reflected light will be high. So the albedo also will be high. Then light in relation to terrestrial habitat. In terrestrial habitat, we can classify plants into two types mainly based on its preference to light intensities. How much, to what extent that plant variety love that light. Based on that, we can classify plants into heliophytes and skyophytes. Very important. Many times it asks for your university examination for 2 mark. distinguish between heliophytes and sciophytes, and also as one more question. What are heliophytes? They are bright light loving plants. They are found in those regions where bright light is available. And in heliophytes itself, another two categories there, obligate heliophytes and facultative heliophytes. Obligate means those plants can live only in those areas that is receiving bright light. Facultative means they like or they prefer to grow in bright light getting places, but it can adjust with those places with is not gaining that much light. It's adjustable. Such type of heliophytes are called facultative. Then sciophytes. Sciophytes means, as this first letter indicates, this is shade-loving plants. Shade, it prefer to grow in less light area, feeble light. And that category also have two distinct division. There are obligate sciophytes and facultative sciophytes. Obligate means those plants always live. They can live only in those area. It's not getting very bright light. And facultative means even if they love or like prefer to grow in shade area, but they can grow in bright light areas also. Such type of plants are called facultative sciophytes. Light in relation to aquatic environment. It is simply represent an aquatic system, surface and bottom. And most consider this is an incident light, and about its 10% reflected back, and 90% is moving to the deep layers. And as the incident light moves down or goes to deep layers of the water system, its intensity decrease. So, one more thing, longer wavelength light are absorbed by surface waters, because longer longer wavelength we need to compare it with a blunt end knife. Blunt end knife എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് മൂർച്ച അത്ര ഷാർപ്പ് അല്ലാത്ത ഒരു നൈഫ് കൊടുക്കുക. It cannot cut very perfectly, precisely anything. But at the same time, if it is a sharp knife, it can very easily cut anything into good pieces. Similar to that, shorter wavelength is similar to a sharp knife, so it can penetrate to deeper layers. Okay. Next, vertical stratification of freshwater habitat, very important. It's a sure question. Most of your university examination, this question is usually asking. So don't omit this question. Everybody should learn this one. Okay, vertical stratification of freshwater and marine habitat. Alternately, it was asking for all your examinations. Sometime regarding the stratification of freshwater is asking, and at the other time marine habitat is asking. So be thorough about both the type of stratifications. Three vertical zones are there. Zones where in freshwater habitat. This is a freshwater habitat. Which are the zones? Littoral, limnetic, profoundal. Then we need to understand about each type of zone. Littoral zone means they are the marginal. Whenever we are stepping into an aquatic system, is a marginal area. It is a region near to the shore. Okay. And as it is marginal, light can penetrate till to its bottom. So, enough light is there. Because of the presence of enough light, aquatic plants thrive well there. Animals and decomposers also grow very well there. Then limnetic. Limnetic means that open space, open sunlight water. This area, good sunlight is reaching, and it is open area. It extends from littoral zone. Okay, and this area is dominated by phytoplanktons and zooplanktons are there, and this area is dominated by phytoplanktons, that small tiny plants, that is phytoplanktons. Then profoundal is the deepermost zone. As it is deep, light cannot reach this zone, so it is light free zone, deep areas. So the life of here also according to that property, because the life exists, that exists here, that doesn't need any light. So we need to understand that the life forms is usually found here that are of microorganisms, bacteria, like that. They are important, essential for decomposition also. So all those features can be observed or noticed in this profound zone. It's about very simple. It's a vertical stratification of freshwater habitat. Then we are going to learn about marine habitats vertical stratification. And there also three zones are there. Euphotic zone is there, dysphotic zone is there, and aphotic zone. So these are the three zones: euphotic, dysphotic, and aphotic. Euphotic means upper layer of water. How much area it extends from surface to 80 meter is euphotic zone. Maximum light penetration is there. Then dysphotic zone. Zone extends from 80 meter to till 200 meter depth. And there also light can penetrate to certain level, only those light having shorter wavelength, and those light are violet and UV rays. Violet is the first one among the visible light. Okay, and is a diffuse light zone, not bright light zone. And below that came the aphotic zone. Aphotic zone means lightless zone. There is no light below this 200 meter depth. And the life form also adapted to live in permanent darkness. Next, we are going to see another section, that is effect of light on animals. Photoperiodism. Yes, you have learned, and also you have hear it, the photoperiodism somewhere in your lower classes again. Photoperiodism, what? It is a response. It is a response of organism to length of daylight. To what? Length of daylight. It is a response of organism to length of daylight. It is first reported by Garner and Allard in 1920. Mainly, plants are showing this property. Animals also showing this property to certain extent. Okay. And this main response are like, and in the case of animals, that light affects the gonadal activities, maturation, proper reproductive cycles, metamorphosis. The metamorphosis means the developmental stages, then birds migration. All these come under the animal's response towards the light, length of the daylight. Okay, here in this picture, you can clearly look and understand that uh, three plants are here. They are short day. As the name indicates, these plants will flower when the length of the daytime is very less. So look here, the daytime is more, so no flower. Daytime is less, so flowering is there. Here also daytime is less. So daytime is less, but it is not reaching up to that level preferred by this plant for flowering. And these are long day plants. Long day means these plants prefer more daytime for flowering. This is a more daytime, so flowering is there. Daytime is less, so no flowering. Here also enough daytime is there. Okay, so flowering is there. It's photoperiodism. Then what effect light is causing on metabolism? Metabolism is mostly affected by the help of many types of enzymes. And the enzymes activities get accelerated with the presence of light to certain extent. By influencing the enzyme, the light can accelerate metabolism also. Effect on reproduction and development. How it affects reproduction and development? Influence is based on the length of the day. The birds adjust its egg laying property. The egg laying property of the birds depends upon the length of the day. In that way it affects reproduction and development. Effect on eyes. What's the influence? Eye development. In the case of cave dwelling animals, cave means inside the cave there is no light, there is no need of development of eye. So cave dwelling animals didn't have a developed eye. This example showing the effect of light on eyes. Also deep ocean fishes. Deep ocean fishes means in that area there is no light. So those fishes doesn't need to develop eyes. But those fishes that dwelling near to 200 meter and near to that depth, they have big eyes because to just to grasp more or all the available light for that. Those fishes that are found near to 200-meter depth have big eyes, and as go deeper, those fishes that found in deep most portion of the ocean doesn't have even eyes because those areas are totally dark. What's the influence of light in pigmentation, coloration of the skin? Influence is that it initiates pigmentation. So cave dwelling animals, as there is no light inside the cave, that cave dwelling animals didn't have any pigmentation, coloration. Then camouflaging is another term you need to understand. What is camouflaging? That and some certain animals show or have the ability to mimic the color of the ambience, surroundings in which they are present. So that property is called camouflaging. It is a preventive behavior, preventive adaptation to protect themselves from its predator. Camouflaging. Camouflaging shown by some leaf insects are showing this camouflaging. And also color changing. Color changing is also an example of pigmentation. It is usually done by chameleon according to its surrounding. Then phototaxis. Phototaxis means photo means light, taxis means movement. Movement of animals in response to light is called phototaxis. Phototaxis are of positive and negative. Positive means movement towards light. Negative means moving away from light. Then one more term is there. Phototropism. Phototropism means what's the difference? Only a part of an organism show responsive movement to light. That type of movement is called phototropism. Okay. This is an example for phototropism. Means here the plants only a part, a region is moving towards the direction of light, not the entire body is moving. So that property is called phototropism. In phototaxis and positive and negative phototaxis, the entire organism itself is moving towards the light, moving according to its preference, its its affection towards light. Next abiotic factor, light we finish. Next one is temperature. There is an optimum temperature for carrying out all biological activity, that is between 0 and 50 degree Celsius. And this is a very optimum good temperature range for having all good biological activity in the optimum level. And if that temperature goes below or above 50 degree, the biological activity may get upset. Then variations in temperature. That variation, temperature varies with the different environment. As the environment varies, that temperature also vary. And that change in that variation in the temperature is more remarkable in the case of terrestrial environment than that of aquatic. Lowest temperature in aquatic habitats that will not usually go below 0 degrees Celsius. But in the case of land, it can go up to the level of minus 70 degrees Celsius. That much difference. And also highest temperature for aquatic habitat is 36 degrees Celsius, and that the case of land, it can go high as much as 60 degrees Celsius or even higher. And diurnal fluctuation means temperature variation in daytime and nighttime. That diurnal fluctuation is very negligible in the case of aquatic system. In the case of freshwater, only 1 degree Celsius difference is noticeable during day and night. And in the case of ocean, a 4 degree Celsius difference is noticed. And at the same time, in the case of light, especially in the case of desert, a 40 degrees Celsius difference is noted. Because during the daytime, it is very hot. And if we are there in the same place during night, it will be so much cold. That very demarkable change is there. Then thermal stratification. Light stratification we have learned in fresh and marine. Now, so here according to temperature also stratification is there. Now, what is the thermal stratification? It is a relationship between fresh water and its temperature. 4 degrees Celsius is an important temperature. It has some significance. What is the significance? At this temperature, water has maximum density. So whatever water medium having this temperature, ice can float over. Because that water, 4 degrees Celsius water is the denser water. It can carry some substances having density lower than that of its density. Okay. Then summer stratification in the case of lake. So, temperature variation in the lake is how that we are going to see. Surface, whenever there is a temperature is 30 degrees Celsius, the surface layers of that lake most probably have a temperature of 25 degrees Celsius. And its bottom layers have a temperature of 5 degrees Celsius. And between these two regions, there are 3 temperature zones. Between this 25 degree and 5 degrees Celsius, 3 distinct zones are there. They are epilimnion, thermocline and hypolimnion. What is epilimnion? Epilimnion means the upper warm waters. And its temperature also decrease as go deep. Thermocline means an intermediate zone. It's a transitional zone. And in this zone, the temperature have fast fluctuation. Hypolimnion is the cold bottom zone. There is no distinct temperature gradient or variation. So temperature is almost will be near to 5 degree Celsius. Then winter stratification. Summer stratification over. Winter stratification how? In the case of lake, the surface will be 0 degrees Celsius. And so the surface form ice flakes. It covers the surface of that water medium. Below that, the water have 2 degrees Celsius. And below that layer of water having 2 degrees Celsius, all the other layers, deep layers, have 4 degrees Celsius. So it can hold that ice cover. And that ice cover over the surface obstructs the vertical circulation of water. This phenomenon is called winter stratification. Is layering and this obstruction. So that's why in some movies I think you have noticed that some persons walking over the ice flakes, ice covers over the lake, suddenly they sink into the water by breaking the ice coverage. Okay, that's why. Because we think that it's a strong surface, but actually it's only a cover of ice flakes. And below that, below the under surface may be fully covered with water, and there's chance for us to sink to that water. Temperature tolerance. Temperature tolerance, optimum temperature is there. Optimum temperature I have explained to you. What is? It is the very best temperature. It's temperature adopted by animals for having all their biological activities. At that temperature, all the physiological activities of that organisms are at maximum, perfect. That is the optimum temperature. Then minimum temperature means it is the lowest temperature at which that organism can tolerate. If the temperature goes below that, that organism may die. So that's the minimum. And similar to that, maximum temperature also there. This is the maximum temperature an organism can bear, tolerate. There are eurythermal and stenothermal organisms are there. Eurythermal means what? Organisms which have wide ranges of tolerance in relation to temperature are called eurythermal. They have adjust with wide fluctuation in temperature. They are called eurythermal. Example, cyclops wall lizard. Steno means they cannot adjust with wide variations. So, only narrow range of tolerance. They are called stenothermal. Examples, corals, snails, fishes, etc. Corals mostly they cannot dwell in colder regions. Effect of temperature on plants and animals. What is the effect on metabolism? Metabolism, as we know that enzymes activity get increased as the temperature rises to certain limits. So in that way, metabolism get accelerated up to certain level of temperature. Then effect on growth and reproduction, how it affects. It regulate or control the maturation of gonads and formation of gametes. Because all these physiological process requires a particular temperature. The temperature and sex ratio, it's also as for your examination several times. Influence, sex ratio is affected by temperature. Sex ratio means how many males, how many females, that ratio. Example, in the case of Daphnis. Daphnis is a zooplankton. In moderate temperature, they develop parthenocarpic. Parthenocarpic eggs means unfertilized eggs. And that egg always develop to females. But in winter season, it develops sexual eggs. That means winter eggs means fertilized eggs. And that eggs can develop either to male or female. This is an example. That temperature affects the sex ratio. Another example is the case of European pond turtle Emys orbicularis. In its case, if its egg is incubated above 30 degrees Celsius, all the young ones will be females. If the egg is incubated below 25 degrees Celsius, the young ones will be male. And if the egg is incubated in temperature between this range, between this means 26, 27, 28, in that range, the egg may develop to either male or female. Male or, not off here. Then effect on distribution of animals, how it affects. Each organism has its own temperature preferences. So, they move according to its preference and to the locality where they have the optimum temperature. Example, corals. Corals usually prefer warm area. Effect on morphology, very, 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 very important. Two rules are here in this portion, in this section. Buckman's rule and Allen's rule. Both these rules are oftenly asking for your examination. So, should learn that. How? The temperature affects the absolute size and the relative proportion of various body parts. How it affects? Bergman rules. What is it explaining about? In the case of same species itself, those that dwelling in colder areas have huge body size than those dwelling in warmer area. What is the significance of having a bigger body size? Larger, by having large body size, they can conserve its body heat because this much area is there. So it can conserve. As the size reduce, that much heat dissipate from its body. So even if this is the condition or statement according to Bergman's rule, that this Bergman's rule is reversed in the case of poikilotherms. That means the size will be big for warmer environment dwelling and size is small for colder environment dwelling in the case of poikilotherms. Don't bother much about that statement. Whenever there is any question regarding Bergman's rule, you need to tell that organism coming under same species having big body size and big body size, those that dwelling in colder than the same group that is dwelling in warmer areas. That is Bergman. Then Allen's rule. Allen's rule means it's just opposite that of Bergman's rule. There is but it is not telling about the body, entire body size, but only referring to the extremities, length of the nose, length of the ears. Because in colder regions, the members of the same species have smaller extremities like ears, nose, like that. The significance of having smaller extremities is that they can conserve that much heat. They say against the Bergman's rule. The same organism. Here the example is explaining the case of a fox, Arctic fox. The extremities is small for conserving heat. So that question is very important. Then effect on seasonal changes in morphology. Cyclomorphosis. That's also so many times as for the examination, very important. Cyclo means cyclical. Morphosis means morphology. In morphology, cyclical changes are happening. How? In response to temperature. Seasonal changes in body form in relation to environmental temperature. Seasonal changes in body form in relation to environmental temperature is cyclomorphosis. Example is Daphnia. Daphnia, its head is rounded in winter season. And as the season becomes spring, it starts to develop a helmet. And in summer, the helmet size increases extensively. And by the arrival of autumn, again the size start to reduce. And on reaching winter again, it become rounded. That's cyclical change in morphology. That is cyclomorphosis. Then temperature and animal behavior. How it affects animal behavior. Influence is that at low temperatures, animals always show decreased activity, mainly in the case of poikilotherms. Then everybody know what is poikilotherms, homeotherms and poikilotherms. Poikilotherms means they are not keeping a constant body temperature. Okay. Thermotaxis means orientation towards the source of heat, like that of phototaxis. Examples: ticks locate host, small creatures, insects that monitor the body of animals. They are called ticks. They locate their host by sensing their body warmth. So it's an example for thermotaxis. With this, we can finish today's section. Thank you.